There exists an astonishing ancient artifact known as WB-44, better recognized today as the Sumerian King List. On one of its panels, it tells the story of 8 rulers who reigned long before history as we know it began. The discovery of this artifact reshaped the way we understand the people of Sumer, the ancient civilization that once thrived in southern Mesopotamia. These weren't just primitive ancestors buried beneath ruins and clay tablets. They were the very architects of organized human life, the pioneers of what we now call civilization. One of the leading figures who helped reveal this truth was Samuel Noah Kramer, a world-renowned scholar and authority on Sumerian history and language. After decades spent painstakingly translating thousands of cuneiform tablets, reconstructing fragmented myths, and piecing together lost histories, Kramer made a groundbreaking confession. His earlier work had underestimated the true brilliance of the Sumerians and the depth of their influence on the world that followed. Before we dive in further, make sure to smash the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our future explorations into ancient mysteries. Kramer's statement sent ripples through the academic world. He admitted that the Sumerians, who lived between the 5th and early 2nd millennium, BCE in the land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, were not merely precursors to later cultures, but the original creators of many of humanity's enduring systems. Their structural, conceptual, and technological innovations continue to echo through our modern age. For far too long, historians had treated them as a kind of prototype civilization, a rough draft for societies like Babylon, Assyria, and even Greece. Kramer boldly corrected that narrative, insisting that the Sumerians weren't just an early people, they were a complete, dynamic, and self-aware society whose reach was far greater than anyone had recognized. He urged scholars to look at Sumer not merely as the first civilization in chronological order, but as one that pioneered the very essence of human organization, developing systems of governance, written law, mathematics, urban planning, and literature that still influence us today. Cities like Uruk, Ur, and Lagash weren't primitive outposts. They were the prototypes for all human society that came after. For years, academics had assumed later Semitic and Mesopotamian peoples built upon Sumer's foundation and carried civilization forward. But Kramer's studies revealed that the Sumerians themselves created, imagined, and built independently. They didn't just pave the way for others. They defined civilization itself. He even pointed out that the invention of writing, often attributed to later Mesopotamian or Egyptian cultures, must be credited to the Sumerians. Their cuneiform script wasn't just a means of record-keeping, it was the birth of human thought made permanent. By acknowledging this, Kramer transformed the entire landscape of historical scholarship. He called upon historians, linguists, and anthropologists to stop viewing Sumer as a stepping stone and start seeing it as a fully mature civilization deserving of its own narrative. He emphasized that nearly every element of modern society, organized government, priesthoods, legal systems, writing, canals, and urban centers, can trace its roots directly back to Sumer. The implications were enormous. Students of history, religion, mathematics, and even political science suddenly realized that much of what defines Western civilization originated not in Greece or Egypt, but thousands of years earlier in Sumer. Kramer's research showed that their legal codes foreshadowed those of later lawgivers, their myths anticipated later religious ideas, and their economic systems predicted future markets. He demonstrated that what we consider the firsts of civilization, written laws, schools, bureaucracies, all existed in Sumer. For the first time, the phrase cradle of civilization became literal. Sumer was that cradle. Kramer's confession carried another layer of meaning. It redefined how humanity should see its own origins. Until that moment, Sumerians were often treated as forgotten ancestors. Now, they were seen as visionaries, as the first people to conceive of structured society. They built cities with organized streets and marketplaces, erected temples that served not only as places of worship, but as administrative and economic centers, and trained scribes in schools to record everything from trade to religious hymns. Kramer insisted that these people weren't waiting for progress. They were progress. This realization forced scholars to revisit ancient records, reinterpret cuneiform tablets, and reevaluate how far Sumerian influence extended into later civilizations. What emerged was a tangled web of cultural, linguistic, and technological connections stretching from Sumer through Akkad, Babylon, Assyria, and eventually Greece and Rome. But Kramer's admission wasn't just an academic footnote, it was a cultural and philosophical turning point. The Sumerians compelled us to reconsider the question: how early did humans truly become civilized? How many elements of our modern identity, writing, cities, mathematics, laws, and even the idea of citizenship, were first imagined in the marshlands of ancient Sumer? By acknowledging that heritage, we recognize that our intellectual lineage doesn't begin with the Greeks or Romans, it begins with the Sumerians. As Kramer famously wrote, we must reckon with Sumer as the locus of that inheritance, not merely as a footnote. This realization reshaped archaeological and linguistic research. Scholars were urged to see Sumerian society not as a backdrop but as a driving force behind civilization. Every cuneiform tablet became a window into humanity's blueprint. Kramer revealed that the Sumerians had schools, bureaucratic systems, and codified laws long before other societies. They weren't primitive. They were organized, educated, and deeply philosophical. In doing so, Kramer elevated Sumer from being merely first, chronologically, to being first in innovation, the original city builders, lawmakers, and inventors of literacy. His acknowledgement placed them squarely at the center of human history. This shift in understanding changed how ancient civilizations are taught, contextualized, and remembered. It encouraged humility among historians and challenged the assumption that human progress began only with familiar empires. Kramer reminded us that the greatest leaps in innovation may have taken place long before recorded history truly began. The Sumerians were not just remarkable for their time, they were revolutionary for all time. This new understanding forced the academic world to confront deeper questions about cultural credit and historical bias. How many civilizations have we underestimated because their remnants were fragile or incomplete? How many inventions have we wrongly attributed to later societies simply because they left clearer traces? Kramer's humility in revising his own conclusions set a new scholarly standard: the willingness to change one's understanding when new evidence emerges. His revelation about the Sumerians expanded the timeline of human brilliance, showing that civilization didn't slowly evolve. It was invented in the floodplains of southern Mesopotamia. Through this lens, we see the Sumerians not as distant ancestors, but as the originators of so much that defines humanity: cities, writing, government, law, education, and art. Kramer's realization transformed the story of human civilization from a linear ascent to a rediscovery of deep, ancient genius. The Sumerians were not merely the first by accident of time. They were the first in consciousness, the first to understand that society, law, and knowledge could be organized, written, and preserved. Their inscriptions, myths, and laws didn't just chronicle life, they defined it. When Kramer finally acknowledged the full scope of their accomplishments, he forever changed how we understand civilization's dawn. The Sumerians didn't just build the first cities, they built the foundation for the entire human story. Their ideas, etched into clay 5,000 years ago, still echo in our institutions, languages, and minds today. So if this incredible journey into the world of the Sumerians opened your eyes, hit that like button, subscribe for more, and share your thoughts in the comments below. The story of Sumer isn't just ancient history, it's the story of us all.